The training hall was massive. It could fit 300 students easily. The ceiling stretched high above them, showing the stars through thick glass panels. Daiho sat with his squad in the human section. Around them sat creatures from 40 different worlds. Some had fur, some had scales, some looked almost human but with extra arms or strange colored skin. Instructor Velmora stood at the front. She was tall, with gray skin and forearms. Her species had been warriors for 300 years before they found peace. Now she taught young soldiers how to protect the galaxy. She moved between the rows of seats, her four eyes scanning the students. Today's lesson was about combat psychology, understanding the mind during battle, understanding fear and courage. Velmora had fought in 12 wars before retiring to teach. She knew what violence did to people. She wanted her students to understand it too before they faced real danger. Daiho listened carefully. He was 28 years old. Back on Earth, he had served in the Korean Marines for 6 years. He had seen combat in 3 different conflicts. The scars on his left arm told stories he didn't like to share. Now he was here in space, learning to be something more than just a soldier. Next to him sat Jiwon. She was 31, a former fighter pilot. Her hands moved constantly, as if still gripping invisible controls. She had shot down enemy aircraft over the South China Sea. She didn't talk about how many. Some numbers were better left unsaid. Behind them, Mirai sat perfectly still. She was 26, Special Forces. People often didn't notice her in a room. That was exactly how she wanted it. She had done things in dark places that had no names, things that kept her awake some nights. She came to the academy hoping to find a different path. The youngest of their group was Hyunwoo. Only 22, but his eyes looked older. He had survived a rebel attack on his outpost when he was 19. 15 soldiers had been stationed there. 3 walked away. Hyunwoo was one of them. He still had nightmares about the other 12. Then there was Somin. She sat at the end of the row, her medical bag always within reach. 29 years old, she had worked in field hospitals across 3 continents. She had held pressure on bleeding wounds while bombs fell outside. She had performed surgery by flashlight when the power failed. She had seen more death than most soldiers, but she had never caused it. Velmora stopped walking. She stood in the center of the room and looked at all her students. Her voice was calm but clear. Everyone could hear her perfectly. "Today we talk about taking a life," she said. "This is not easy to discuss, but you must understand what it means before you face battle. You must know the weight of such an action." She paused. Her 4 eyes swept across the room. "I want to ask you a question. Be honest, no one will judge you. This is only to help me understand your experience level." The hall was completely quiet. 300 students waited. Outside the windows, stars moved slowly past. A transport ship drifted by in the distance. "Who here has taken a sentient life?" Velmora asked. "Raise your hand if you have killed another thinking being." For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, hands began to rise. A Carthenian warrior raised his hand. His people valued honor in battle. 3 Arxians raised theirs. They came from a military culture. A few others from various species followed. Maybe 30 hands total out of 300 students. Then the human section moved. Like a wave, hand after hand went up. Daiho raised his. Jiwon raised hers. Mirai's hand lifted smoothly. Hyunwoo's hand shook slightly as he raised it. One by one, every human hand rose into the air, every hand except one. Somin kept her hands in her lap. She stared straight ahead. Her face showed nothing, but inside she felt the weight of 31 pairs of eyes turning toward her. The only human who hadn't raised her hand. The silence in the hall changed. It became heavy. Velmora's 4 eyes widened. She had expected some humans to raise their hands. She knew Earth was troubled. But all of them? Except the medic? This was something she hadn't imagined. The alien students began whispering. A Delphian near the front turned to look at the humans. His species hadn't fought a war in 600 years. The sight of 31 raised hands from one species shocked him. Were humans really that violent? That dangerous? Velmora cleared her throat. "You may lower your hands." Her voice was steady, but something had changed in her eyes. She continued the lesson, talking about the psychology of combat. But the atmosphere had shifted. Everyone felt it. When the break came, Daiho noticed the alien students moving away from the humans. Not obviously. Just small steps, creating distance. The Delphians gathered in their own group and whispered. The Carthenians looked at the humans with new expressions. Not quite fear, not quite respect. Something in between. Someone stood up and walked toward the exit. She needed air. She needed space. But she felt isolated now. The other humans didn't know how to look at her. Was she weak, naive? How could a military medic have never had to defend herself? In the hallway, G1 caught up with her. "You okay?" the pilot asked. Her voice was gentle. Not judging, Soman nodded. "I'm fine. I just chose a different path." She touched the medical symbol on her uniform. "I took an oath to save lives. That's what I do." G1 studied her face. "You've been in combat zones, though. You've been shot at." "Yes." Soman's voice was quiet but firm. "Twice I could have picked up a weapon. Twice I chose not to. Even though it almost killed me both times." Jiwan said nothing. What could she say? She had killed to protect others. Someone had nearly died to protect her principles. Both choices had cost something. Both choices mattered. Back in the training hall, Velmora sat alone at her desk. She pulled up the human personnel files on her tablet. 32 humans in her class. She read their backgrounds. Former Marines. Former soldiers. Former police officers from conflict zones. A pilot who had flown combat missions. A medic who had worked in war hospitals. Every single one had a military background. Every single one had seen violence. Not because they wanted to. Not because they were naturally aggressive. But because that was the world they came from. Earth in 2287 was still a planet that sent its children to war. Velmora had fought in wars. But her wars ended. Her planet found peace 3 centuries ago. These humans were different. They came from a world where war never really stopped. It just moved around. Changed names. Found new reasons. But it never truly ended. She thought about the one human who hadn't raised her hand. The medic, Soman. Velmora read her file more carefully. 3 years in field hospitals. 2 commendations for bravery. Multiple deployments to active war zones. And somehow she had kept her oath. Never taking a life, only saving them. The instructor closed her eyes. She understood now why the other species feared humans. But she also understood something else. These weren't monsters. They were survivors. They had been shaped by a cruel world and were trying to be better than what that world demanded. Tomorrow she would need to address this. She would need to help her students understand. But tonight, she sat alone in the empty training hall, thinking about a species that raised 31 hands and kept 1 down. Both responses told the same story. Earth was a hard place, and its people carried those scars into the stars. Week 5 brought the combat simulation. Everyone had been waiting for it. Talking about it. Worrying about it. This was the first real test of their training. Not sparring. Not drills. A full mission simulation that felt completely real. The Academy used neural interface technology. When you wore the helmet, your brain believed everything was real. The pain felt real. The fear felt real. The bullets felt real. But it was all simulation. Safe. Controlled. Or so they said. Daiho stood with his assigned squad in the preparation room. 6 people total. 3 humans, 3 aliens. Him, Mirai, and Hyunwoo from Earth. Then Korval, a Carthenian warrior who stood 7 feet tall with 4 arms. Quartz, a silicoid made of living crystal who thought faster than most computers. And Soman, their combat medic. The mission is simple, Instructor Velmora explained. Pirates have taken hostages in a fortified complex. 12 civilians. You have 40 minutes to extract them without triggering a massacre. Your squad must work together. No species can do this alone. They put on their neural helmets. The world dissolved. When it reformed, they were standing outside a concrete building on a desert planet. The sun was hot. The air tasted like dust. In the distance, guard towers showed armed figures watching. Daiho's training kicked in immediately. He studied the building, counted the guards, looked for weak points. His mind mapped approach routes automatically. 6 years in the Marines had taught him to see these things without thinking. Quartz, I need guard patrol patterns, he said. Mirai, find us an entry point. Korval, you handle the heavy door on the east side. Everyone else, stay close and stay quiet. The plan worked beautifully for the first 15 minutes. Quartz's crystal mind analyzed patterns perfectly. Mirai moved like a shadow, scouting ahead. Korval's strength made obstacles disappear. They got inside without raising an alarm, then everything went wrong. A hidden sensor triggered. Alarms screamed. Red lights flashed. Pirates poured into the corridors from every direction. The simulation had thrown them a surprise, an unexpected variable to test their response under pressure. Gunfire erupted. Hyunwoo took 3 rounds to the chest. The neural interface made his body believe it. He fell, gasping. Blood that wasn't real spread across his uniform. Pain that felt completely real shot through his nervous system. "Medic!" Daeho shouted. He returned fire, trying to create cover, but the pirates kept coming. This wasn't the clean combat Korval had trained for. This was chaos. Urban warfare at its worst. Salmon ran. She crossed open ground under fire, her medical bag clutched to her chest. Rounds sparked off the walls around her. She didn't flinch. She had done this before in real life. Her hands found Hyunwoo and started working immediately. Korval froze. His people fought with honor. Face to face. Clear rules. This wasn't battle. This was madness. Bullets came from everywhere. No formation. No structure. His warrior training became useless in this environment. Quartz tried to analyze the situation. Too many variables. Too much chaos. His crystalline mind worked fast but needed patterns. This was pure disorder. He couldn't process it quickly enough. Daeho saw his squad falling apart. The aliens were good soldiers. Brave, well-trained. But they had never faced this kind of combat. The kind Earth specialized in. The kind where there were no rules and survival was the only victory. He switched to Korean. Mireille, left flank. Suppressive fire. I'll draw them center. Summon the second you're clear. Move Hyunwoo to extraction point. Don't stop. Don't wait. What happened next shocked their alien squad mates. The 3 humans didn't just fight. They flowed. Like water finding cracks. Like they had practiced together for years instead of weeks. Mirai became invisible. She appeared behind enemy positions, eliminated threats with precise shots, and vanished again. Years of special operations training made her perfect for this chaos. Daeho advanced with controlled aggression. Not reckless, calculated. Every move designed to draw fire away from Summon and Hyunwoo. He had done this dance too many times. In too many real places. The simulation felt familiar in the worst way, but Soman surprised everyone most. While treating Hyunwoo, she called out enemy positions. 3 o'clock, second floor, 2 targets. Behind you, Daeho, 1 approaching fast. Mirai, clear the hallway before you advance. Thermal signature shows 4 waiting. She had never picked up a weapon, but she had been in enough real firefights to know how they worked. Her mind mapped the battlefield as clearly as any soldier. She had spent years in field hospitals under siege. This wasn't new. It was Tuesday. Korval watched in amazement. The humans weren't just fighting. They were teaching. Without saying it directly, they showed him and Quartz where to position. How to move. When to fire. The Carthenian warrior found his courage again. Not through honor, but through seeing a different way to fight. Quartz stopped trying to analyze everything. Instead, he provided targeting data. His crystalline sensors saw things others missed. Heat signatures. Movement patterns. The humans acted on his information faster than his body could move. Together, they became something greater. They fought their way to the hostages, all 12 civilians scared but alive. Then came the extraction. Back through enemy territory. Every meter cost them. Every corner was a potential ambush. But the squad moved together now. 6 people, different species finding a rhythm in the chaos. They made it to the extraction point with 3 minutes left on the clock. All 12 hostages safe. No squad casualties beyond Hyunwoo's initial wounds, which Soman had treated successfully. The simulation ended. The desert dissolved. They were back in the preparation room. The neural helmets came off. Everyone was breathing hard, sweating, shaking. The simulation had felt completely real. Hyunwoo sat on the floor, hands trembling. He touched his chest where the simulated bullets had hit. No wounds, no blood, but his body remembered the pain. His mind remembered the fear. Memories of the real attack 3 years ago came flooding back. 15 soldiers. 3 survivors. Salman sat beside him. She didn't speak. Didn't offer empty comfort. She just stayed close. Someone who understood that winning didn't make the fear go away. Someone who had faced real bullets and real blood too many times. Korval approached Daeho. The tall warrior's 4 arms hung at his sides. His people valued strength in battle. But today he had felt weak, useless. While the humans fought with practiced ease. I should have been stronger, Korval said. His voice carried shame. I am a warrior. But I froze. Deho looked up at him. You're trained for honorable combat. Warrior to warrior. We're trained for survival when honor isn't an option. Different skills. Not better. Not worse. Just different. But you moved like veterans, Korval insisted. All of you. Like you had done this 1,000 times. Because we have. Mirai's quiet voice came from behind them. Not simulations. Real missions. Real bullets. Real blood. That's the difference. We've already lived through what you just simulated. Instructor Velmora entered to review the footage. She watched the recording in silence. Saw how the humans moved. How they coordinated without discussion. How they made decisions in split seconds that would take others minutes to analyze. You succeeded, she told the squad. All hostages extracted. Minimal casualties. Excellent coordination. She paused. But I see something else. The humans in this room aren't cadets. You're veterans pretending to be students. Her 4 eyes focused on Deho. How old were you during your first real combat? 20, he answered. Hyunwoo? 19. His voice was barely a whisper. Velmora's expression was hard to read. Your species sends children to war. By the time they reach the academy, they're already carrying years of combat experience. Most of my students have never seen real violence. Your students have survived it multiple times. We don't have a choice, Deho said. That's our world. That's what made us. And how does your species heal from that? Korval asked. The question came from genuine curiosity. How do you live normal lives after so much violence? Deho had no answer. None of the humans did. They were still trying to figure that out. Still trying to be more than what war had made them. That's why they came to the academy. Not to learn how to fight. They already knew that too well. They came to learn how to live in peace. That evening, the other cadets looked at the humans differently again. Not with fear this time, with something closer to sadness. Understanding that these people had been forced to become warriors before they were ready. Before they had a choice. And they carried that weight like a scar that never quite healed. 3 days had passed since Velmora asked her question. 3 days and everything had changed. The mess hall had invisible lines now. Humans on one side, everyone else on the other. Nobody said it out loud, but everyone knew it. Deho carried his food tray to an empty table. Behind him walked Jiwon and Mirai. They sat together like they always did. But the tables around them stayed empty. Alien students found reasons to sit elsewhere. The Delphians chose tables by the windows. The Carthenians sat near the door. Anywhere but near the humans. They think we're dangerous, Jiwon said quietly. She picked at her food without eating. They look at us like we're bombs that might explode. Mirai said nothing. She rarely spoke unless she had something important to say. But her eyes tracked every movement in the hall. Old habits from her special forces training. Always watching. Always ready. Hyunwoo joined them with his tray. The young man looked tired. He wasn't sleeping well. The raised hand question had brought back memories he tried to forget. 15 soldiers. 3 survivors. The numbers played in his head every night. Where's Sumin? He asked, looking around the hall. Medical bay, Deho answered. She's been spending more time there. Easier than sitting here feeling everyone's eyes on her. The truth was that Somin faced isolation from both sides. The alien students saw her as human, which now meant dangerous. The human students didn't know what to think. She was one of them, but also different. The only one who kept her hand down. That afternoon, Instructor Velmora called Deho to her office. The room was small but comfortable. Weapons from a dozen worlds hung on the walls. Trophies from her 3 centuries of service. She gestured for him to sit. I need to understand, she said directly. Your people. Your world. Help me understand why every human raised their hand. Deho took a breath. Where did he even start? How did you explain Earth to someone whose world had known peace for 300 years? In Korea, every man must serve in the military, he began. Not because we want to, because we have to. The war from 1950 never really ended. The border is still hostile. We live ready for conflict every day. Velmora listened. Her 4 eyes focused completely on him. But it's not just Korea, Deho continued. Every region on Earth has seen war in living memory. The Middle East, Africa, South America, Eastern Europe, Asia. Conflict moves around, but it never stops. By 2287, there's no place on Earth that hasn't buried children who died in uniform. That's your entire planet? Velmora's voice showed her shock. Constant war? Not constant, Deho said. But always somewhere. Always someone. Jiwan flew combat missions over disputed waters. Mirai fought in places that have no names on official maps. Hyunwoo survived a rebel attack that killed most of his unit. We didn't raise our hands because we're proud. We raised them because you asked an honest question and we gave an honest answer. Velamora stood and walked to her window. Outside, stars stretched forever. Beautiful and peaceful. And the medic, Soman? She chose a different path, Deho said quietly. Medical oath. Save lives, don't take them. She's been shot at. She's been in danger. But she made her choice and kept it. That must have cost her, Velamora said, almost cost her life twice. Deho's voice was steady. But she made her choice anyway. That takes courage, too. The next day, during combat training, things got worse. The exercise was simple hand-to-hand sparring. Partners were assigned randomly. Hyunwoo ended up paired with Relmuth, a young Delphian student. The Delphians were peaceful by nature. They had slender builds and gentle movements. Relmuth approached the sparring mat nervously. He had heard the stories now. Every human was a killer. Every human had taken lives. The match started. Hyunwoo pulled his strikes, trying to be gentle. But years of training had taught him to react without thinking. When Relmuth made a clumsy attack, Hyunwoo's body responded automatically. A block, a counter, a takedown, too fast, too hard. Relmuth hit the mat wrong. His arm twisted. Bone cracked. The Delphian cried out in pain. The training hall went silent. Hyunwoo froze. His hands shook. I didn't mean to. I just reacted. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, his voice broke. He looked at his hands like they belonged to someone else. Salman rushed over with her medical kit. She knelt beside Relmuth and quickly examined the arm. Broken but clean. I can set it. Her hands moved with practiced confidence. She had done this hundreds of times in worse conditions. They carried Relmuth to the medical bay. Hyunwoo followed, still shaking. Salman worked quickly, setting the bone and preparing the regeneration treatment. The Delphian would heal in a few days. His people's biology recovered quickly from simple breaks. I didn't mean to hurt him, Hyunwoo said again. He stood in the corner, unable to look at anyone. They trained us to respond without thinking. Move fast, strike hard. I was 19 when I learned. 19 when I had to use it for real. Relmuth looked at the young human. Through his pain, he saw something he hadn't expected. Genuine remorse, real fear. Hyunwoo wasn't a monster. He was a young man trained for war before he was ready. Trained so well that violence had become reflex. Tell me, Relmuth said quietly. Tell me about when you were 19. Hyunwoo's eyes went distant. Rebel attack. Remote outpost in Mindanao. 15 of us stationed there. Most were older than me. They had experience. I was the new guy. He paused. The attack came at night. They hit us hard and fast. No warning. When morning came, 3 of us were left alive. You were just a boy, Relmuth said. I was a soldier. Hyunwoo's voice was flat. That's what Earth does. We make soldiers out of boys. We don't have a choice. Somin finished her work and gave Relmuth medication for the pain. Then she turned to Hyunwoo. Sit down. You're in shock. She made him drink water. She checked his pulse. She did what she always did. Took care of people. All people. Even when they couldn't take care of themselves. That evening, Relmuth told the other Delphians what happened. Not the accident. The story. What he learned about humans. They weren't naturally violent. They were shaped by their world. Forced to become warriors to survive. And now they carried that weight wherever they went. Word spread slowly through the academy. The humans weren't monsters. They were survivors. Every raised hand represented choices they never wanted to make. Situations where killing was the only way to protect others or stay alive. And the one human who kept her hand down, she had faced those same situations and made a different choice, knowing it might kill her, choosing it anyway. That wasn't weakness. That was strength of a different kind. Late that night, Jiwan found Soman in the observation deck. The doctor sat alone, watching Earth slowly rotate in the distance. A blue and white marble hanging in the black. Do you think less of us? Jiwan asked. For what we've done? Soman was quiet for a moment. I think you did what you had to do. I chose to be a healer. That's my path, but I don't judge you for walking yours. But you've been in danger, Jiwan pressed. You could have defended yourself? Yes. Soman's jaw tightened. Twice I could have picked up a weapon. Twice I chose to keep healing instead, even when it meant I might die. Why? Jiwon asked. Because someone has to. Soman turned from the window. Someone has to choose life over death. Even when it's hard. Even when it's dangerous. Otherwise, what's the point of surviving? If we all become killers, who's left to heal us? Jiwon had no answer. She had killed to protect. Soman had nearly died to preserve. Both had paid a price. Both choices mattered. And maybe that was the real answer. Not that one was right and one was wrong, but that both were necessary. Warriors and healers. Both needed. Both valid. The next morning, the mess hall looked different. Not completely changed, but better. Some alien students sat closer to the humans. Not next to them yet, but closer. Small steps toward understanding. The invisible lines were still there, but they were getting lighter. Fading slowly like fog in morning sun. Week 7 started normally. Morning exercises, classes, training drills. The humans had earned respect after the simulation. The other cadets no longer avoided them. Some even asked questions about Earth tactics. Small friendships were forming across species lines. Then everything changed during the afternoon navigation exercise. The Academy's sensors picked up a distress signal. A coalition medical ship called the Sanctuary Dawn was under attack near the Veil Nebula. The message was breaking up, fragmenting, but the meaning was clear. They needed help. Commandant Thoris called an emergency meeting. The 4-armed Praxian looked worried. 300 people were on that medical ship. Patients evacuated from a plague zone, civilians, doctors, nurses, and the nearest military vessels were 6 hours away. The Academy's training cruiser, Resolute, could reach them in 90 minutes. But it was a training ship. Minimal weapons, small crew, 20 instructors, and over 200 cadets. It wasn't designed for combat. It was designed for learning. We have to try, Instructor Velmora said. 300 lives versus 6 hours. They won't survive that long. Thoris knew she was right. But Academy rules were clear. Never send cadets into real combat. Never risk students in actual danger. These were children learning to be soldiers, not soldiers yet. Then he made a decision that would change everything. We go, but volunteers only. No one has to come. This is real danger, real risk. He expected maybe 50 volunteers, young idealists, the brave ones. Instead, 173 hands went up, more than half the Academy, and every single human raised their hand without hesitation. The Resolute launched 30 minutes later. The jump to the Veil Nebula took an hour. During that time, the crew prepared. The instructors organized defensive positions. The cadets checked weapons. Everyone knew this might not be a simple rescue. Jiwon studied the tactical display with growing concern. She had flown combat missions. She understood enemy psychology. Why would pirates still be there? She asked Velmora. They got what they wanted. Medical supplies. Why risk a coalition response? The instructor had no answer. But the question worried her. Pirates were criminals, not stupid. They knew better than to stay near a distress beacon. The Resolute dropped out of jump space near the coordinates. What they found made everyone's blood run cold. The Sanctuary Dawn floated dead in space. No power. Multiple hull breaches. Emergency lights flickering weakly. No pirates in sight, just silence. It's a trap, Deho said quietly. He stood at the tactical station analyzing the sensor data. They're waiting to see who responds. Before anyone could reply, 4 ships decloaked. Not small pirate raiders. Military-grade frigates. Unknown design. They appeared in perfect attack positions around the Resolute. This wasn't random. This was planned. The first weapons barrage hit before they could react. The Resolute's shields flared. Alarms screamed. The training ship shook like a toy in a storm. Commandant Thoris ordered evasive maneuvers, but the Resolute was slow. Built for teaching, not fighting. The attackers weren't trying to destroy them. They were trying to disable. Targeting engines. Weapons, communications. They wanted the Resolute intact. A training cruiser full of cadets from important families would be worth more than any medical supplies. Another hit. The ship rocked harder. Casualties started coming in. A Delphian cadet with a broken arm. a Carthenian with burns from an exploding console. The medical bay filled quickly. Soman worked fast, organizing triage. Her training took over. Prioritize. Stabilize. Move to the next patient. On the bridge, Thoris ran calculations. They couldn't fight. 4 military ships versus 1 training vessel. They couldn't run. The enemy had perfect positioning. That left one option. Defend the ship when they boarded, because boarding was inevitable. Prepare for ship defense, he ordered. His voice was steady, calm. But everyone heard what he didn't say. Most of them would die. These were students, not soldiers. Well, most of them. The human cadets moved differently from the others. While alien students scrambled in fear, the humans became focused, calm. Daiho checked his weapon with automatic movements learned years ago. Mirai positioned herself at a choke point without being told. Jiwan's hands stopped shaking. Her pilot training included emergency combat procedures. Hyunwoo's hands still trembled. He was scared, terrified. But he moved to his defensive position anyway, because being afraid didn't mean you got to stop. He had learned that at 19. Fear just meant you were alive enough to understand the danger. The alien cadets watched the humans with new understanding. This wasn't bravery. This was experience. The humans weren't moving like students preparing for their first fight. They were moving like veterans preparing for another fight. Because that's what they were. Velmora saw the change. Saw how the humans transformed from cadets into soldiers in moments. Like pulling on an old coat that fit too well, they didn't want this. But they were ready for it. Because they had always been ready. The boarding pods hit. Metal screaming against metal. Cutting torches began their work. 5 minutes until breach. Maybe less. The defenders took positions. Most were shaking, some were crying. They had signed up to learn peacekeeping, not to die in actual combat. In medical bay, someone offered Somin a weapon. She refused. I have work to do. If they get this far, I'll have more work, not less. Her voice was steady. She had made her choice years ago. War wouldn't change it. Fear wouldn't change it. The first breach came on Deck 7. The boarding pod opened. Armed figures poured out. Professional military contractors, mercenaries. They wore unmarked armor and carried stun weapons. They wanted hostages alive, not dead. The first defensive line collapsed in seconds. The mercenaries were too good, too experienced. They used shock grenades and suppression fire. Most alien cadets fell back immediately. Training evaporated under real violence. They had never felt this before. Never faced actual death. Then the mercenaries reached the section held by Daiho's squad. The humans had positioned themselves perfectly. A corridor intersection with overlapping fields of fire. Prepared fallback positions. It was urban warfare doctrine, learned in Earth's endless city battles. The mercenaries advanced expecting easy resistance. Instead, they walked into an ambush. Mirai's first shots were perfect. The point man went down. Jiwan used a maintenance drone as mobile cover, something the attackers never expected. Hyunwoo fought with desperate intensity. He had survived one massacre. He would not allow another. The mercenaries fell back, regrouped, advanced again with more caution. A brutal exchange of fire erupted. The humans gave ground slowly, made every meter cost. This wasn't heroism. This was survival, and survival was what humans did best. On the command deck, Velmora watched tactical displays. The human cadets weren't just fighting. They were executing combined arms tactics, coordinating fire lanes, using terrain advantages. These were skills that took years to master, but the humans already had those years. She finally understood. Every raised hand, every bit of experience. It wasn't theoretical. These people had lived through wars before they were old enough to vote. They had killed not from aggression, but from necessity. And now, faced with real violence again, those skills came back like muscle memory. Other cadets began rallying around the human positions. Korval found his courage again. Deho showed him where to use his strength effectively, not facing enemies with honor but using tactical advantage. Quartz provided targeting data. The humans acted on it faster than his slow crystalline body could move. A second boarding pod breached near Medical Bay, the attacker's primary target. Wounded cadets made perfect hostages, easy to transport, valuable for ransom. They cut through the hull and prepared to storm inside. 4 humans disengaged from their positions and raced toward Medical. G1, 2 other pilots, and a former military police officer. They reached the bay 30 seconds before the breach. No time for defensive preparation, just 4 people between the attackers and 12 wounded cadets. Behind them, Soman continued working. A Delphian cadet had internal bleeding. She couldn't stop, couldn't pause. If she stopped, he would die. So she kept her hands steady and trusted the others to hold the line. The mercenaries breached. They expected an easy capture. Instead, they found 4 humans who had made a terrible calculation. They couldn't retreat. The wounded couldn't be moved. The doctor wouldn't stop working. So they would hold or die. Jiwan took command with the calm certainty of someone who had accepted death. She positioned her people in the narrow entrance. The mercenaries had numbers, training, better equipment. The humans had desperation and experience. In a confined space where every shot mattered, the battle was brutal. Close quarters, no room for tactics, just reflexes and will. The mercenaries couldn't use grenades without destroying their prize. The humans couldn't retreat without abandoning the wounded. It became a grinding exchange where neither side could afford to lose. Throughout it all, Soman's hands never stopped moving, extracting shrapnel, sealing wounds, administering medication. Rounds sparked off the walls around her. She didn't flinch. She had made her choice. Save lives, no matter the cost, even her own. The mercenaries finally pulled back from Medical Bay. Too many casualties. What should have been an easy capture had turned into a killing ground. They regrouped at their boarding pods, reassessing. These weren't normal cadets. Something was wrong. Jiwon slumped against the wall, breathing hard. Her armor had 3 new dents. Close calls. One of the other defenders was wounded. Not critical, but bleeding. Soman moved to treat him without pause. Still working. Always working. In the command center, Daiho studied the enemy patterns. He had been watching them, learning them. Mercenaries followed standard playbooks. Professional but predictable. And humans had written those playbooks before breaking them for decades. They expect us to defend, he told Velmora. Wait for rescue. Hunker down. He pointed at the tactical display. We do the opposite. We attack. The instructor's 4 eyes widened. Attack with cadets? Against professional soldiers? This isn't an academy exercise anymore, Deho said quietly. This is survival. And survival is what we know. His plan was simple but brutal. Use the maintenance tunnels. Cramped spaces where the mercenaries' formations wouldn't work. Hit their staging areas, their communication hub. Make them fight on human terms. Asymmetric warfare, the kind Earth had perfected through centuries of necessity. Velmora wanted to say no, wanted to keep her students safe. But she saw the truth in Deho's eyes. Safety wasn't an option anymore. They were already in the fight. The only question was how to win it. Do it, she said. Mireille led a 3-person team through the ductwork, moving in spaces barely wide enough for a person. Silent, careful, special forces training that most species never needed. Because most species didn't spend centuries fighting wars in cities and tunnels and jungles. They reached the mercenaries' communication hub from above. Through a maintenance access panel, the attackers never expected assault from inside their own secured area. Mirai dropped 3 smoke grenades and opened fire before they could react. The hub went dark. Communications failed. The mercenaries' coordinated assault became confusion. Individual units lost contact with command. Their professional advantage crumbled. Other teams hit supply points, ammunition stores, staging areas, always from unexpected angles, always in close quarters where the mercenaries couldn't use their superior numbers. The cadets were learning. The aliens and humans working together now. Different species, different skills, one goal. But victory had a cost. In one assault, a Carthenian cadet took rounds protecting Mireille's retreat. He survived barely. In another, 2 Delphians were wounded by grenade shrapnel. Every meter gained was paid for in blood. Then came the moment that would haunt them all. Hunwoo's team encountered a wounded mercenary, left behind by his squad, dying from blood loss. He was the enemy, the one who had attacked them. But he was also just a man bleeding out on a cold deck. "Leave him," one cadet said. "We don't have time." Hyunwoo stared at the wounded man. Saw himself at 19. Saw his friends who didn't survive. Saw all the death that war created. "No," he said. "Get Somin, we're not leaving him." "He's the enemy," someone protested. "He's dying." Hyunwoo's voice was firm. "Call Somin, now," they called. Somin came, through active combat zones, under fire. Because that's what she did. She treated the mercenary like any other patient. Stopped the bleeding, stabilized him, saved his life. But while they were helping the enemy, the battle moved. A mercenary team flanked their position, caught them exposed. Hyunwoo saw them coming, saw the weapons raising, saw death approaching. He moved without thinking, threw himself between Somin and the incoming fire. 4 rounds hit him. Center mass. He fell hard. The neural interface from the simulation was gone. This pain was real. This blood was real. No. Somin's scream cut through the combat noise. She forgot the mercenary she was treating. Forgot everything except the young man bleeding out in front of her. Her hands moved automatically. Pressure on wounds, assessment, treatment. But some wounds are too severe. Some damage can't be undone. Hyunwoo looked up at her with eyes that were already fading. "Did we save him?" "The enemy?" "Yes," Somin said. Tears ran down her face. "You saved him," Hyunwoo smiled. "Just a little. Good. We're supposed to be better than this. Better than war." His eyes closed. His breathing stopped. Somin worked on him for 40 minutes. Long after it was hopeless. Long after everyone knew. She refused to stop. Refused to accept. Until Jiwon finally pulled her away and Somin broke. The composure that had held through everything finally shattered. The mercenaries surrendered 20 minutes later. Coalition military vessels arrived. The fight was over, but 5 cadets were dead. 2 Carthenians, 1 Delphian, 2 humans, including Hyunwoo. 23 more were wounded, 7 critically. In the days after, the Academy struggled with what happened. Commandant Thoris recommended every volunteer for commendation. They had saved the ship, saved each other, shown courage beyond their training. But commendations meant nothing to Somin. She sat in the medical bay staring at the bed where Hyunwoo died. She had saved dozens during the battle, but the one who saved her she couldn't save back. The galactic media ran stories. Human cadets save Academy. Earth's warriors defend training ship. Young heroes defeat mercenaries. Every headline made it sound glorious. None captured the truth. The humans didn't feel like heroes. They felt tired. Daeho sat alone in the observation deck. Mirai stopped talking even more than usual. Jiwon couldn't sleep. They had come to the academy to learn peace. Instead, they had done what they always did. Fight, kill, survive. Velmora found Daeho 3 days later. He was cleaning a weapon. Standard maintenance. Automatic movements learned long ago. He didn't need to clean it. The battle was over. But his hands needed something to do. "I understand now," she said. Why every hand went up. Why Somin stayed down. Both choices carry the same weight. Daeho didn't look up. Hyunwoo was 22. He survived 3 wars on Earth. Came here to learn peace. Died in a galaxy that's supposed to be civilized. What does that say about us? "It says you're survivors," Velmora replied. "Your world made you into warriors before you had a choice. But what you do now, that's still your choice." Hyunwoo chose to save an enemy. You choose to teach. Somin chooses to heal. Those choices matter more than the past. Do they? Daeho's voice was hollow. "We came to space to be something better. But when danger came, we became exactly what we were before. Killers." "No," Velmora said firmly. "Killers don't spend 40 minutes trying to save enemies. Killers don't cry when they fail. You're not defined by your ability to take life. You're defined by what you choose to do with that ability." The memorial service was held in the main hall. Representatives from dozens of species attended. When it came time to speak about Hyunwoo, Jiwon stood. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were wet. Hyunwoo raised his hand when asked who had killed. He killed at 19, defending others. He carried that weight for 3 years. In his last moments, he saved an enemy soldier. That's humanity, shaped by violence but reaching for something better. He deserved to live in a universe where he never had to be a soldier. Her voice broke. We all do. After the service, the academy changed. Not dramatically, but in small ways. The humans were no longer isolated. Other cadets understood now. These people weren't dangerous by choice. They were products of a hard world trying to be better. Salman continued her work in medical bay, her hand still steady, her commitment to healing unshaken, but now other cadets came to her not just for treatment but for conversation. She became someone people talked to when they struggled with what they had seen. Proof that facing violence didn't mean becoming defined by it. Deho received a promotion to lieutenant. They asked him to help teach combat tactics. He accepted. Not to make better killers, but to help others survive if they had to fight. There was a difference, he learned. Teaching death versus teaching survival. 6 months later, a new class of cadets arrived. 24 humans among them. During the lesson on combat psychology, Instructor Velmora asked her question again. Who here has taken a sentient life? Once again, every human hand rose. Except one. The new combat medic, Dr. Jiho. He kept his hands down with the same quiet conviction Soman had shown. But this time, Velmora was ready. To those who raise their hands, your experiences have value. You understand the cost of violence. To you who kept your hand down, your choice has equal value. Both paths take courage. Both matter. She looked at all her students. We're here to protect the galaxy. That means understanding both when to fight and when to heal. The humans know this better than most. They've been forced to learn it. We can learn from them. And slowly the galaxy began to understand. Humanity wasn't a species of natural warriors. They were survivors trying to become something more. Every raised hand represented choices they never wanted to make. And every hand that stayed down represented a different kind of strength. The question would always be asked. The hands would always rise, but now everyone understood the weight behind them, and the hope that maybe someday no hands would need to rise at all.